Connie, y'all.
I'm Leslie.
And I am Laurie, and welcome to
Sumo Kaboom.
Sumo Kaboom,
where we talk about all things sumo.
That's right, and this time we are not alone. It's not just the two of us in a closet in Dallas, Texas. We have been joined by two very famous actors who are in the coolest show that started in California, is now in New York City at the Public, but only for one more weekend. Is that right?
Yep.
The show.
March 30th.
Yep. A show that I really wish that I could have seen in person, but a show that we have been following since the first casting notice came out. The show called Sumo. So,
did you know that we put a notice out to our listeners that said that they were looking for talent for the La Jolla production?
Wait,
oh, really?
Yeah,
That's
because I think they reached out to us. Like, how did we know about it? Somebody was like, hey, can you see if there's anybody you know?
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we do actually know a lot of amateur sumo wrestlers all over. But yeah, so we have
awesome.
known about the show for quite a while. And
Wow.
what's funny is Laurie and I consistently get people, because we're both in the show business as well, that our friends are like, do you know about this? And we're like, of course, the 12th time, of course we know about the Broadway show that's about sumo. Like, of course.
So please introduce yourselves. Tell us what you do in the show. Tell us all about it.
I'll go. Hello. My name is Ahmad Kamal. I am an actor. I play the character of Den in Lisa Sanaya Dring's production of Sumo.
Hi, y'all. My name is Earl T. Kim. I'm also an actor in the cast of Sumo, and I play the role of Shinta.
Can you tell us the plot of this play, please?
Yes. So let's see if I still remember the elevator pitch here. So Sumo focuses on one specific heya and more closely follows the newcomer that joins this heya or the stable named Akio. He's young, he's feisty, he's really ready to enter the world of sumo. He's been watching it ever since he was a kid. And it basically follows his progression within the heya as well as the other rikishi that he meets within there, and it kind of just focuses on the interpersonal relationships that occur within the heya, as well as really targeting the conversation of the ambition and the drive that falls for these wrestlers, as well as the consequences that comes from having such a one-track mind on the sport, while also observing kind of the ritualistic aspects of it. Is that close enough? Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that, again, the story centers around Akio's journey, joining a heya and dreaming of higher heights. And then along the way, he not only learns about sumo as a martial practice, but also learns about sumo in its sort of more esoteric forms. The whole show, I think, for me, is this interesting exploration and meditation around devotion. And yeah.
I keep wanting to like hide some of the like surprises that occur within the show. So if you bring us after March 30th, we'll reveal all the spoilers in case your listeners can make it to the show in time.
You know, it's really interesting. We probably are having a lot of people watch this that are not at all familiar with sumo, because a lot of them might be friends of ours or come from the show business world. And this is the one time in our lives where the passionate thing that we care about the most intersects with actually like our livelihoods. And so there's a lot to learn about sumo, but wrestlers, or what you call rikishi, that's the Japanese word for a wrestler essentially. They don't call it a sport. It's really like a culture, a lifestyle. It's like a stable, or what you said is a heya, is like a monastic type of living. It's like between 8 and 16, sometimes more if you have bigger stables. Or in the old days, they used to have 40 guys in the stables. The guys that live together, cook together, live under the same roof together. They practice every morning, which is what's called the keiko. And then they eat their chanko nabe lunch, and then they might practice in the evening, but it's all under the guidance of the oyakata, who is usually a former wrestler, or who is always a former wrestler, usually of high ranking, and the okami-san, who is their wife. The coach does the coaching, and the woman does like the everything else in the stable and arranging things. They're like they're mothers and fathers, to these kids that often come into the sport sometimes at 15 or sometimes after college too. So my question after all that explanation, hopefully that helps some people who are newer to the sport.
No, that's
I
great.
don't want to sound condescending or, to anybody who knows a lot about sumo, but we might have some crossover audience here. As far as what Akio is trying to achieve, is the goal, I know you can't say it, like to become the highest ranked wrestler, which is called a yokozuna. There's a ranking system within sumo. Is that the goal, is for them to reach it all the way up to the top?
I think it depends on which character you're asking that question to. At least in the first couple of scenes of the show, Akio is it's clear that he has an objective in mind, and it is that kind of this position of, I want to be the best. I want all of the rewards that comes from this lifestyle without necessarily appreciating the process that comes with it. What's really wonderful about the way this text is written and the way it's been developed from, I mean, I only recently found out about this, Earl, that you had been a part of the piece even through a Zoom reading, like during like its early stages.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to hear like about all the shifts that occurred there. But I know at least with this production at the Public and with my theater company, there is a desire to show how each wrestler that interacts with Akio, how they impart a different lesson and a different piece of this martial ritual. Because I think one of the things that we were really keen about, at least from my perspective, is ensuring that it's clear that this is not just a sport. Like you said, this is not just about big guys pushing each other out of rings. There is a level of respect to the earth and to the world around us that is being imparted within these larger than life beings. And I think there was something that we wanted to ensure that Western audiences receive that, and receive that how they will, really, but just that we wanted to do a good job telling that aspect of the story. But I'm also curious, just from Earl's perspective, where that continued to shift at the beginning and where that went from La Jolla onwards.
Yeah, like I think when Ahmad was saying, like, depending on who you're asking, Akio's goals, I think, shift. And I think depending on when you're asking Akio that question, his goals are often shifting. But I think, it follows a sort of tried and true hero's journey archetype, if you will. But I think, again, where our show does it tries to flavor in and inform the audience about how that hero's journey looks slightly different from our standard hero's journey when we're looking at sort of your track, because of how the sport is tied in with ritual, with culture, and with sort of a societal understanding around origin myth, like the idea of these gods being brought down to battle for the fate of this island nation based on, would it be the followers of Takumi Mikazuchi or Takumi Nakata, like, and these sort of, yeah, bringing that sort of larger than life esoteric background into a sort of hero's journey type play becomes a lot a big challenge. And yeah, like Ahmad was saying, I originally encountered the piece in 2020 during lockdown. Lisa, who is a friend of mine, just randomly sent me a text and was like, "Hey, I know we're like confined to our apartments and slowly losing our minds. Do you have an afternoon where you'd want to do a Zoom play reading?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, please, yes, anything
Another
than
one?
just, yeah, anything than just, I'd rather do that than just stare at my carpet and like look at my cat and be like, what are we doing?" You know? And so she sent me the script and was like, "Yeah, we're just gonna do, like, it's nothing, it's like my first draft, like, it's just us, it's nothing, who knows what's going to happen to it, but we might as well just get together and read it." And like, even I think then when we read through that initial draft, I could tell that there was, I don't know, Lisa's writing is just so beautiful and poetic, but also has this very snappy, quick, fun, smart quality to it that I think it was really lovely being able to journey into this sort of Heya and into this sort of larger than life mythic quest of this young contemporary 18-year-old who dreams of supermodel wives and big brand contracts and all of the success, and sort of riding that wave. And then also the ways that Lisa was able to fold in, again, culture, ritual, esoteric ideas, and yeah, and sort of looking at the significance of sumo, not just sort of Japanese culture, but also like Japanese American culture as sort of worldwide culture, and sort of how much more it's become than just a sport.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think the current iteration is, I think, so much. There's been so many rewrites and so many reworkings that I think, in the really beautiful thing about this current version is that now it's also the Heya, the separate members of the Heya are given fuller lives and clearer paths, because originally I think you oftentimes think of like, oh, our side characters are all helping the main character's plot go along, like they're and I think while they originated as devices to sort of help propel Akio's journey, over the last few years, I think everyone has really gotten their own journeys fleshed out themselves, and ultimately I think the story has become much stronger for it.
Yeah, really clear through lines for all of the characters. I even remember, I mean, I know that the script in La Jolla was an entirely different being
Mm.
by the time, because I was only introduced to this show for its current iteration in New York, and when I received the script to audition with, it was an entirely different script. And
Oh,
on our
wow.
first day of rehearsal, it was an entirely different script.
Wow.
And in each version of those scripts, and we've even heard this from audience members that have seen the show, you are aware of that kind of conventional hero's journey, but you still don't know where the story's going. And that was such a joy to kind of be able to enter the room, see just how big the packet of new pages was, and you go, okay, this is going to be an entirely new thing. Where can we do with this? It's very exciting how fluid and kind of accepting of our bodies and our voices this process has been.
Now,
Absolutely.
what roles do you play? Give me a little tidbit about who your character is and what role do they play in the stable?
So I play Den. Den is, help me out here, Earl. What's Den's ranking at the beginning of the show?
You're at Judio.
Judio.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
you're at Judio. And then,
Yes.
yeah.
So we do not see the Oyakata in the show, but the main master of the stable when Oyakata's not around is our Ozeki, and so I am next in underneath Ozeki. I'm a Juryo, and Den was described originally as kind of like the workhorse of the stable. He's a hard worker. He keeps his nose down and he just does his work. It's always interesting hearing what other characters have said about Den, and a lot of it comes from this like, keep away from him. Den could kill you, don't talk to him or anything like that. And so he presents as being a very hardened wrestler who is just there to do his work. And what's really interesting is that through the course of the piece, you get to see a bit more of his emotional journey, his heart, and how he interacts with the other wrestlers. At times it feels like he and the Ozeki of the Heya are at opposite ends of the spectrum about how to treat other wrestlers within your Heya and how to potentially bring them along the journey. And so that's really, again, what I love about what's been happening is that this is really just a kind of a microcosm of human interaction. There's love towards each other, there's brotherhood, there's a true sense of spirituality, and there's anger, and a lot of that kind of comes up in different versions of that. So that's how I would describe Den.
Yeah. For Shinta is Makushita, and so he's under that. In the script, when you get the character breakdown, Shinta's is Shinta, a free thinker. And that's kind of I think the basis of how Shinta sort of interacts with the rest of the world. He's the most woo-woo member of the Heya, but at the same time, I think he is, again, provides a lot of spiritual, esoteric, interconnected ideas to Akio at sort of his beginning phases of understanding training. And yeah, I think Shinta serves to be this a reminder of the larger picture. I think is what he constantly is trying to impart on Akio, on the rest of the Heya, and I think it's this connection to something greater than. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
Earl does it beautifully every single night. I asked for you to be here so I could gush about you in
Oh,
front of people.
oh,
Yeah.
stop.
So, are there future productions of this planned? Because I know yours is about to end.
I don't know what we could talk about, and I don't
Oh,
know what's true. Like that's another thing. Like the public theater has currently been swirling with rumors. Like
oh, okay.
because I think it's mostly because our run is coming to an end, and it's been. I'd like to think that it's been very successful. We've had really full houses. We've had really warm receptions from audiences. Also, like all of my theater industry connected human beings in this city are just like so don't be weird about it, but like everyone's talking about your show. I'm like,
Yes.
everybody? Like,
That's
what?
awesome.
So
Hey, will you
hopefully,
tell us though? Because I know so many people are curious. As far as the audition, what your training was like, your weight training, how much did you have to do food training? Because that is very much
Oh.
like, did they
yeah.
have expectations for size? Although, of course, in sumo, if you're not aware, there are no weight classes. So everyone plays or, wrestles differently at their weight. They find their own weight advantage, but there is an element of food training. Tell us a little bit about like your initial jump into the sumo culture, and did you live your life as a rikishi, and how does it feel wearing, I assume you're wearing a mawashi
Yep.
for a
Mhm.
lot of it, and your thoughts about dressing and how that made you feel stepping into your character.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind of crazy to
it's
like.
it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, especially now as we're nearing the end of the journey, and there's a level I'll at least speak initially to how we present our bodies to our audiences.
Right.
We were told, or at least I was told when I auditioned, that there was this level of like everyone is going to be training together. This will be an everyday thing. You are expected to maintain your weight, and really there is a deep appreciation and a desire within the casting process for actors of size. This is meant to kind of portray, even though there are no weight classes, but we are meant to portray these larger than life wrestlers. I know for me, prior to beginning rehearsals, I gained about like 30 to 40 pounds, some of it intentionally, some of it not so intentionally. But a big part of it, we were told from I had to submit a kind of a physical movement piece that went alongside my acting side. So I come from a boxing background, so I did a bit of a boxing movement there. And then my physical callback process was with one of our co-fight directors, James Yagashi, who led me through a sumo warm-up just to see what kind of flexibility and range I have. And then we were kind of, or at least I was given instructions on how I would move forward. I was like, hey, whether or not I get cast, what are the weak points? And he was like, okay, one of the things that we really tried to like instill into all of the actors is this ability to feel so grounded into how you move, and such a big part of that comes from your appreciation of your lower body. So a lot of my exercising prior to rehearsals was focusing on that, and then we just kind of kept going with that within the rehearsal. We were training for like 3 hours every day before we even
Shiko,
touched shiko.
Suriashi,
Yeah,
Butsukari.
chirichozu, everything. And there's
Doing all the
Butskari Gecko
rituals, getting it
within
all.
the scenes as well.
Oh,
It's
nice.
all present there. And
Love
what
it.
was wonderful is our other fight director, Chelsea Pace, she coordinated with James, who comes from a sumo background, in terms of how do we blend in the martial elements of this sport with something that the actors can do 8 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be that kind of
Nice.
compromise and balance between the two. But there really is a deep desire for authenticity in how we move. And so much of that comes from even outside of the actual pieces of choreography. It's just in how you carry yourself. So that was my kind of initial foray into like, okay, I got to take off my shirt. I got to present myself. I mean, I remember even auditioning and kind of picking clothes that were maybe a little bit too tight for me to kind of show my size.
Nice.
And it really kind of starts this kind of appreciation for what this body can still do, even outside of the gaze of Western culture, where you're kind of always being told to fit into a different type of box. Here, there was a deep desire to show this is what Eastern strength looks like, which was really beautiful. And I know other actors kind of really appreciated that process within the same way.
Absolutely. My sort of path is slightly different also, again, because of being involved from sort of early on, and wildly and strangely, even before that process, in around 2018, 2019, I was cast in another role that is completely separate from sumo. But my character at that point in time, their background was that that they were a sort of representative of early sumo, and a sort of like a Shinto ascetic who had sort of been who was sort of a part of the establishment of sumo in sort of early Japan. And so when I was cast for that character in that project, the company was very, very encouraging and very, very just very, very excited. And so they actually had me go train with USA Sumo in LA, in
Fabulous.
Orange
Oh,
County. And
yeah.
yeah, so I was there. I trained with them for about 6 months.
Oh,
About 6 months, and then strangely and wildly received a message from production from the project I was working on, and they were like, "Hey, unfortunately, the narrative and design teams kind of came to this new sort of reiteration of your character, where they're no longer going to be Shinto sort of sumo aesthetic. We're gonna shift that into you being more of a Buddhist warrior monk type character. And so thank you so much for all of the training and research that you've been doing, but you don't have to do it anymore. Thanks." And I was like, oh,
He says in a full split.
six
Just
okay.
months, 6 months of Keiko. It's not easy.
So I mean, I feel like even my 6 months were very like, and everyone at USA Sumo was like, "Oh, he's an actor. He's just
the
coming
actor
to dabble
method.
and sort of look at what's going on. Like, don't worry about him too much, And there's me just sort of chicoing away in the corner. Like, but they were really, really kind, and I feel like I learned so much just in that span of going and watching and doing shiko and getting pushed around. But yeah, so that sort of was really, really helpful in coming into this process. And yeah, I think one of the like Ahmad touched on as well, just the ideas around our bodies. We were very much given a lot of how do I say, just ownership over our own process in sort of not just getting comfortable with our level of being disrobed, but also just in being able to sort of see and feel ourselves in this world, in this reality. I think there was a lot of but never any sort of like, you gotta do that, like it was very sort of,
An off book date and an off clothes date.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
Like, but at the same time, like, I think because of that container being so well managed and taken care of, like Ahmad was saying, our co-fight director, who's also our intimacy choreographer, was like, "Hey, completely just coming into various states of undress is a thing that you go through and that you will have to come through, on your own time, and how you feel comfortable is, maybe today you will do some scenes shirtless. Maybe tomorrow you won't feel like. Maybe you're just going to be cold, and so you don't have to be shirtless. Like maybe we go through this process and feel where we are on the day, so that we can adjust to what we can do to find our best performances even in rehearsal, and make sure that we become comfortable with sort of not just, I think, showing so much skin, but also being able to really be empowered by it and feel embodied with it. I think that was really one of the big things that Chelsea focused on, that it wasn't, this sort of salacious revealing of skin, but that it
Yes.
was actually like almost I don't know, like it sounds really like very esoteric theater person-y, but like in a very like Grotowski via negativa, like sort of stripping away to reveal the truth kind of. I don't know. Sorry, yeah, I know.
No,
It's
I'm
so
That's so amazing. But this is the truth. Like when we go out into the real world, I talk to people, I say I do the sumo thing. And the first thing that people say is, oh, big guys in diapers,
yeah.
like the most
Fat
insulting thing.
guys in
Fat
diapers.
guys.
Yeah.
that's
And
awful.
and when you go and see a tournament in person, you realize the way Americans are with bodies in general is puritanical and kind of kooky.
Hmm.
But the Japanese have a different relationship to the body and to the strength of a sumo wrestler. Like we were blessed enough to get to meet some really cool people when we were there, some big time wrestlers of yesteryear. But people want, of course, they want these guys to hold their babies. They're like gods. They are bigger than life. They represent so much more than just a big guy. They are the epitome of strength and the closest that a human can kind of be to a godlike figure. So the
Hmm.
size is important. And when I watch, wrestling, I know Laurie feels, I think the same. Like I'm amazed by the bodies and I'm amazed by their presence in their own bodies.
Yeah.
Because our view in America tends to judge immediately, but that's not what happens in Japan. That's not the
Absolutely.
way they view them. Like they view them as an athlete, as this figure of respect, and it's truly wonderful. It's
Yeah.
exciting to me.
One of our co-fight choreographer and cultural consultant, he constantly sort of mentions these two triangles, the sort of Western idea of what we consider strength and masculinity is sort of this inverted triangle with broad shoulders and a small waist, and that everything is carried up top and sort of balances that way, whereas sort of culturally Japanese, it is the other way. We have this upright triangle where the base and the bottom is considered to be where,
Dirty.
yeah, sturdy, and
Yeah.
where our connection to the ground, our connection to the floor, our connection to our centers,
Yes.
and ultimately, in the woo Shinto way, our connection to the demons and spirits and gods that live under the earth. And then we stack on top of that sort of our other priorities, and sort of
Which,
that
if you look at
shift.
the ranking system, it's a
It's also
triangle.
Exactly.
So it's like Jonakuchi, Sandame,
Yeah.
Makushita, Shiryu,
Yeah.
Makuuchi. It's that. It's
Yeah.
that.
And sort of thinking about that, I think that was one
I
of the
forgot
things that
one.
was constantly reiterated to us, where like, the lens at which your bodies are viewed on one side of the ocean is completely different than the lens that your body is viewed on the other side of the ocean. And so understanding that once we were able, I think, as an ensemble to sort of realize that much of the show isn't about trying to do anything really other than shift that lens, trying to go, hey, how about we look at this world in a way that is not the way that we normally, as Westerners, as Americans, as how maybe we can use that lens to view these things, view these stories, and then view the world around us, I think, is sort
Yeah.
of the core rub of what we're trying to get at.
But to your point, Leslie, I mean, again, the way that these wrestlers are seen in Japan, really, it doesn't compare to like
There's nothing,
celebrities
yeah,
in
there's
the West.
nothing that is similar in the way that, like, oh, like, oh, they're like movie stars. It's like, yes, but
Yeah,
also
but also
They're
not.
like,
more.
can I
They,
touch you?
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like they're like sports stars. Well, yes, but
Yeah.
also
Like, hold
not.
my baby
Like,
for good luck.
they
yeah,
Yeah.
really
yeah,
they really are. I mean, to quote Earl's character, they remind us of who we are and what we are capable of.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they are parts of like I was looking up the photo of Hakuho and Asa Shoryu at the Spring Festival where they're throwing beans for
Yeah.
good luck, and it's just they are ingrained within the lifestyle and culture of Japan, and for good reason, because this sport did not come about purely for entertainment. It comes from ritualistic observation that is kind of, it like doesn't even sit against or with traditional or regular Japanese culture. It just kind of runs in parallel. Like not all Japanese citizens are particularly religious, but they are aware of Shinto religion and its existence within the culture. So it's a weird thing that like, or unconventional thing that can't really be described in other places. But from my perspective, physically, I know that as an actor of size, but also just as an actor, you get people who go like, oh yeah, like you cry on stage, you laugh on stage, but you don't know how to be strong. Like sports people can be. This show is such a great testament to the idea of being so emotionally vulnerable and available as actors are, while also displaying a skill set that I think a lot of actors have, which is the ability to use their body to tell stories, but also to kind of create a level of spectacle. We have 3 Homba shows that happen during the show, and they really are like crowd cheering. We
yeah.
If we could give people cushions to throw at us, they would kind of energy, and
The
it's
Broadway transfer
fantastic.
will have cushions, and that's what we keep saying. We're like, Broadway transfer will have cushions. We'll have cards. We'll have all sorts, and we'll
The
yeah.
back that we could
And
all
we'll get the
buy.
fans. We'll
Yes.
get
The
the fan.
The
towels.
towels.
Yeah.
We have half of that stuff already.
We do right there. Sorry, tell me more about how those fights were developed and choreographed, and how you have to warm up for them or get ready for them. Just tell me about how that came to be, because I'm so fascinated by how you're putting what you're approaching with such care. And I so
Yeah.
appreciate how you're putting that on the stage and how people are responding to it.
I mean, I think I will start the conversation about the
Please.
fights because I am fight captain.
Woo woo woo.
I think a lot of it started with discussions and conversations between James Ayagashi, who we call James Sensei, and then Chelsea Pace, who we call
Just
Chelsea Sensei. And James was great because he had such a deep and connected understanding of sumo as well as martial practices that are sort of ancillary and around sumo. Like we talk about karate and judo and aikido, and James Sensei's that's his language. And then understanding and translating to Chelsea sort of the hallmarks of what visually cue watchers of sumo to understand that a fight is happening, like understanding that there are noticeable either formations or movements and maneuvers that sort of make the audience know what's going on, and utilizing, well-known techniques like tsupari, like nodowa, like, and when you're choosing to go into yotsu, as opposed to as opposed to just going from tachiai clashing to striking, like finding building those moments of storytelling within each fight, because I I don't think there is a single moment of violence that is wasted or excessive or that is too much. I think every single piece of violence that we have in the show is ultimately telling a story either about the wrestler who wins or about the wrestler who loses. And that becomes so much more of a broader painting or picture that you don't quite realize until you're at the end of the show and you've sort of gone through, again, 24 moments of these 24 fights that give you that fuller picture of, oh, they were going for this, or, oh, we found this particular technique. One of the clearest ways that we establish that is by essentially giving each rikishi in the heya their own preferred move, essentially their own sort of specialty, their own idea of how they prefer to get the win or do the tactic or do that. And so part of it becomes, going back to that hero's journey idea of Akio encountering this world and learning about these techniques like tsupari, like suryotoshi,
Mine is
watanage.
Hatakikomi.
Yeah, Ren's is
Hatakikomi
hatakikomi.
slap
Yeah,
down. All
yeah,
right.
and so understanding that, like, each of these rikishi has a particular flavor that they enjoy, and that when we wrestle with Akio or when we wrestle with each other, it becomes these ideas of sharing about why this trick or why this maneuver, and being able to sort of anchor the audience in
Yeah.
understanding that it becomes this that it becomes this idea of integrating all of these techniques and these tactics.
And I'll say that from my perspective, as someone who I'm not cultured in sumo prior to this show at all, to the point where, like, I at least came in and was like, I know it's called sumo. And you're like, no, it's called sumo. And you're like, all right, never
Sumo.
mind. But from that perspective, I know that I went into like, I need to know what I physically need to be able to do in order to win a fight. I need to understand the martial tactics, like Earl was saying, behind each technique that is being presented. So a lot of it, from my perspective, like I said, we are training for 3 hours every day for the first like 5 weeks of just like doing mokade suriyashi for a while, doing shiko for a while, and then doing tsuparis on the teppa pose in order to kind of really understand how it resonates in your bodies. But then such a big part of the conversation that you have with each actor and each wrestler is how you share your weight with one another. This is not, kind of, from my perspective, more careful choreography. There really does have to be a sense of intimacy and connection within each other in order to feel these like big clashes that happen during tachiais. They have to feel realistic, otherwise it feels like we are not doing justice to this presentation and to the sport. So a
Absolutely.
big part of that is that kind of like, be a good partner, not a nice partner to your fellow actor. Share the weight until knowing that we are all, I forget who said this, we're all bases of pyramids. We have
Yeah.
all been the bases of a pyramid at one point or another. We can handle each other's weights. And so we are able to kind of sit with that. And we have fights that are of various lengths. Like, we have fights that end in 2 seconds. We have fights that last for, in previous iterations, 3 minutes. And each one tells a different story in terms of what it's trying to achieve within the greater arc. Again, to answer your question, Lori, in terms of how we train, there's a lot of flexibility training. There's a lot of true martial understanding of terminology and stuff. Like, as a person who was coming into the New York production, I was aware that the folks from La Jolla had already done this before, and I felt a bit like I was trying to catch up for the first couple of days. And everyone was so welcoming to be able to say, okay, We're going to have a formal glossary day of where James, our sumo consultant, kind of went through all of the movements of what the chirichozo looks like and what the shiko is supposed to represent and how it strengthens your body. And we've been able to kind of repeat that within our bodies to where it feels almost second nature. Again, it feels, on my perspective, I'm overjoyed every time we do it because it feels like something that I think will be a part of my life beyond this production. It really feels like a new way to kind of treat my body and to treat physicality, which is really
You definitely feel stronger.
Truly.
100%.
Truly,
100%.
Truly.
So I have a question, and we'll wrap this up here soon. Do you see a wrestler that you kind of see yourself in? Do you know the wrestlers today where you're like, oh, my character fights like Ura or Hakuoho? Or,
I mean, no one
wish
fights like Ura.
No one fights like Ura.
I know.
We're all huge
I'm
Ura
not-
fans in the
We are
back.
Yeah.
I mean,
our Heya. We're Ura fans
we're
for sure.
100% Ura fans. Ura definitely brings the fire and spontaneity, and everybody loves watching him. Everyone.
I don't necessarily think that my wrestler fights like Takayasu, but I do like Takayasu, and I enjoy. There's an additional level of intimidation that I feel his energy
Oh, yeah.
that sits there. But at the same time, when you hear him in interviews, there's a joy, I think, in what he's doing, and that reminds me a little bit of Den. That like he seems like he has a very hard outside, but he has a softer inside that he doesn't let people into all the time.
What about you, Earl?
Well, it's also interesting. So for opening, our James Sensei, James Yagashi, he gifted all of the Rikishi handprint autographs.
They got it?
Ah,
Yeah,
nice.
we got and he gave me Abi, and I love
Oh, did he?
Abi.
I didn't
know that.
Yeah,
You
he
like
gave me
Abi?
Abi. So I like Abi, and I've gotten into some like discussions about like this is going to be controversial, but
No, it's okay. You could say it. You're fine. You're fine.
I find Henka to be such an interesting factor of a fight. And
Yes.
when Abi Henkas, it's wild. Like I find it so jarring and like disruptive in a way that I'm just like, that's fucking genius.
Oh, I know.
Like
A lot of people feel that way. They're like, we talk about it a
Genius.
lot because people are like, it's a legitimate thing, and he does it really, really
It
good.
does
We
it-
had that
it- it's
conversation about
so-
Chio
it-
Shoma.
it-
He's so
yeah.
fast, he's so good at it. But he's capable of straightforward sumo. So when you see him, you go, this is a strategy. But don't cheat us out of the straight.
yeah.
But he's so good at it, and he's got those long arms, and he's so fast.
And like this at the top of this past Hombasho when he took on Yokozuna, I was just like,
I
it's
know.
gonna be an Abi Hombasho, and then unfortunately, it
I know
didn't pan out
that
so
there
well,
was so
but
much to say
that
in that
first
match,
match
though.
was
Why he
so wild.
he chose that.
Yeah.
So much to say.
So wait, I have small questions. So can I do these really fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
One, is there karaoke in the show? Because karaoke is
Yes.
really big in the sumo world.
It's
Of
scary.
course there is. We
It is
would.
a
I
real
feel like it could not. We couldn't call the show fully sumo if there wasn't really. And I think Lisa, the playwright, and all of the creative team were very very adamant about karaoke being a part of the show.
Oh my god.
the
love that.
Yay.
the transition from the hombasho that happens immediately into karaoke is so beautiful because it's just so sudden, and all of a sudden audiences are like, what's happening? What is this?
That's sumo.
It's also-
That's why we love it.
The technological, like magical feel, for me, that moment is going into the last Hombasho into a sort of karaoke moment is like, this is the magic of theater. Like this,
Yeah.
so many cool things. Just sort of also because we've got like wild projection design and moving. Like
we are
everything
standing
becomes-
we are standing on the shoulders of some amazing design giants
Absolutely.
for this production,
Absolutely.
like through
Because
and
you've
through,
got a
top to
doyo
bottom.
out there. You've got a clay doyo.
We gotta.
How?
Yes.
How did
not
they do
clay because
Okay.
our poor
theatrical
bodies.
clay?
Waiting for the Broadway production for the true clay one.
actual
We'll be
clay.
able to fall on audiences in the front row. It'll be great.
Some padding underneath
Some
their doyo
sand
to
seats.
save
Yes.
yourself.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Doing 8 shows a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That
we do have a couple of fights that get very close to the audience and do kind of just. It's always fun to because I do a ring out for one of the rikishi that I go up against, and it is always fun to watch audiences go.
Well, like we joke about how we should maybe give them some ponchos because I
Y'all
know
are
that
sweaty?
there's definitely a
Here's some
splash
sweaty
zone
folks.
in the first
Yeah.
row where if you're in the path, like you're gonna get sweat on you.
But that
Well,
is the sport.
you can't help
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
they're sweating at like the blink of an eye. They're sweating.
you can't help
But in
it.
interviews, they're buckets of sweat.
Yeah. Well, and when I'm on stage, it's all like spit coming out of my mouth. So if
Yeah.
it's not spit, it's sweat.
Combination.
It's
Yeah,
both. It's
yeah.
both.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
so are there sizes to your mawashi, and how do you get into them before each show?
Because I think one of the things that I love about our cast is that we do have a large representative body diversity within sort of what the rikishi would look like. So we have shorter, squatter rikishi. We've got like larger, longer rikishi. I think everyone's mawashis are pretty much exactly sized.
To us.
And then thank God that we have a wardrobe crew that will be able to help us get into them when we need assistance, because sometimes it's just you gotta get in and then you get tied in. And
Yeah.
So it's
the
traditionally
closest-
tied. It's like
Quite.
a 2-minute mawashi.
It's not.
It's a mixture of both. The
It's a mixture of
fabric
both.
we have received authentic fabric for the mawashi,
Okay.
but some of them are rigged for quick changes, and they also have like fail safes.
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
anything kind of
Yeah.
not work the way it should.
Yeah, which in real sumo is disqualification.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't report us, but I know for a fact that I've had an interesting journey with this production because I am observing Ramadan while I'm also doing the show.
my
And so
goodness.
I made a very clear kind of announcement to the costume designer where I was like, listen, my weight is going to fluctuate. Every Ramadan, I either lose 10 pounds or gain 20. So we need to be ready for that. So we've been I know that my mawashi has a couple of extra just in case hooks that we are able to reach for in case I have lost a little bit of weight. And so we've had to kind of tighten the mawashi a little bit more, but then we
Amazing.
can also let it out if need be.
That's
And then-
awesome.
The thing that I like in it, and unfortunately, I've been in a corset before as well, but I feel as though like in the process when we're getting into the mawashi, oftentimes like we sort of get in, and then there is at some point a dresser will grab us and be like, hold on, and just and we're just like, okay, hello, I think we're secure. And so it has that. It's very much like a
Chafing's a real problem.
I imagine.
Night and day from
assume-
my my silk mawashi that I have for my home bashos.
Oh, I imagine. Yeah, that's different than the canvas one.
Yeah.
You all have wigs with your top knots and ginkgo or
Ginkgo leaves.
We
Yeah.
do.
no?
Okay, nice.
The wigs are an absolute engineering design marvel.
That is so
Our wig
cool.
designer, Albie Alvarado, he is a genius. Also, because the wigs also house and hide our microphones.
Right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can't have it. Well, I mean, I
Where
guess you
would
could
it
have
Where would it go?
Exactly.
But
I hadn't thought
the
about
brilliant,
that.
Yeah, the brilliant thing is that it also solves the problem. Like even if we would have like a mic pack like on our mawashi or on our bodies, because we're falling and being thrown, it's so dangerous to have those
Right.
there. And so really the only logical place that they were like, well, if it's on the top of their heads, then
As long as they
it'll be
don't
the
touch you,
safest.
Just don't land on your head.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
we don't have any crazy headbutt touchy eyes. We do have
Okay.
some headbutts, but none sort of straight on.
Okay, I
just
was
to
going to ask. I was
avoid.
like, how far into this, like with these touchy eyes, do you bonk heads?
I mean, some of them. There are some bonks that are specifically built into to sort of bring
Engineered
about
bunks.
engineered
bonks.
bonks to bring around the visceral nature of some of the fights, but for the
As
most
far
part
as,
we
like,
try not to bonk too hard.
Oh, good, because that would be a nightmare with the unions. What about the language? I know you all obviously pronounce everything correctly. We pronounce everything incorrectly, although we could pronounce things correctly, but we pronounce them as like Americans do.
As
Um,
Texans do, really.
Texans do.
Howdy.
Howdy. But as far as like the language and getting used to the language and Japanese language, I assume it's in English, but everything is said as much as you can. If they are kimarite, they are pronounced correctly and all that kind of stuff. And the rest is English, American English.
Yeah, for the most
Awesome.
part.
Yeah. There
Oh no, I was gonna say like we have a large audio file Dropbox of our lovely and amazing James Sensei saying everything, repeating everything, slow,
Shkol.
fast, medium, yeah, every single
Mhm.
possible term in our terminology glossary could that or as well as like small phrases and things that would occasionally come up. Lisa has said a lot of the times the actual Japanese that we use is oftentimes for either direct terminology that relates to sumo or for phrasing that doesn't quite exist in English, like
Mhm.
certain words and certain ideas around how we communicate, like when there isn't a clear or concise English equivalent, then it's just like, well, we'll just use the Japanese.
Yeah.
Like ganbate, things like that.
Yeah, gambate, like as well as like we even point out the sort of in the show it gets pointed out the ridiculousness of saying banzai to someone when you celebrate them, but it is you do say banzai when you celebrate them. It's just like saying may the emperor live to be 10,000 years old. Like you're just saying that because it's what you say.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's nice because there's also some moments even outside of the world of sumo where there is some Japanese that is spoken, and it creates a kind of like a deep emotional emphasis for the characters that speak it to each other. And I know I'll say this because this is something that I'm still always in awe of for my journey. I know that my character, it was never really said where Den is from in scripts that I had read in the past and auditioned with. The assumption was that they were all either Japanese or Asian of Asian descent. And when I got cast, we began to kind of play with the idea that Den could be of a different ethnicity. There can be something that makes him a bit of a black sheep within the Heya. And Lisa was so generous to offer me an opportunity to say, like, would you like to be able to speak? Because I come from an Egyptian background. Is would you like to be able to speak some Arabic to certain characters? There's certain moments that occur there, and I asked for that not to be the case. I like kind of being able to portray this character with a sense of universality in terms of anyone can apply him in future productions, but also in the fact that he chooses to ingrain himself within Japanese culture so much because
Mhm.
of what his past may have been and
Mhm.
or what he attempts to build in the future. So there's a desire even for my own character to speak the Japanese words correctly. One of the words that is always kurage, which is jellyfish, to speak it to another wrestler within the Heya. And there's an importance of being able to just accept this new culture to his own body and to his own tongue. So that even as an actor, I feel that same way. So I was very grateful for that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense. There was an Egyptian wrestler. I can't
Mhm.
There
remember what
was.
was his name.
Yep.
I know
Was
his
he the
real
skinny
name. I don't
guy?
remember his shikona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
either.
Yeah.
But there was an Egyptian guy. Yeah, not so long. Or I don't know. Maybe it
He
was
reached
10 or 15.
Maegashira rank before
Yeah, before he retired.
having that
Yeah.
infarction. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's
But
quite a few foreigners in this
and
sport,
we've
and
Yeah.
had a
they
huge
take
one
it
with the
so
Ukrainians this
seriously.
basho.
Yeah, the
As I know
Ukrainians.
you're huge on Anishki fans, but
Yeah.
it's interesting what that kind of conversation does in terms of like a sport that is kind of ingrained in history to be entered by people from the outside world. I think we touch on that a little bit within the show, but in general, I mean, obviously it occurs. It's part of the sport and part of the ritual, but it does something, I think, at least from my perspective and my character's perspective, in terms of the interactions that you have with those that are not foreign and what that does for the story.
That's so awesome.
Well, listen, y'all, if there's anything we've missed that you want to say something about, now is a really great time to do it.
I wanted to say how much I do like Kotozakura's face when he throws the salt. I will
Yeah.
say that like there's a
The
level of
eyebrow?
spectacle, yeah, that is like really fun because it's such a conservative sport in a way
Mhm.
that when those moments peek through, it's like super exciting. Earl has been kind of my guru in when it comes to that kind of stuff in terms of, hey, I want to do this. Is that me westernizing the sport too much? And he goes, yeah, but maybe do this. And I was like, great, cool. And it really kind of helps. It's nice to find the boundaries of that sport, and being able to see professionals do it is really exciting. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to mention that as well.
And Uda smells the wine notes.
Yes. Oh my
Oh yeah.
gosh. He's a sommelier. I
Yes.
love.
It's the absolute
Yeah.
best.
I like
It's
the
just
guys
and
that slap themselves
Yeah.
silly.
well, and
Yeah.
I just think
Takayasu
that's
did
awesome.
have the absolute best early on when he used to do the with the
Yeah.
shoulder
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
He
Just
doesn't.
show his traps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's beautiful.
I miss that.
Sorry, is there anything
Oh
you want to say,
man.
Earl?
No,
No, if anything, like, it's so wild. I think, if anything, like, I just have this just this overwhelming sense of gratitude to be able to be telling the story, to be able to be bringing this to New York and theater going audiences, to be able to, yeah, just be doing this kind of work. I think, especially now because of the climate of all of the things, but really like sort of showcasing a culture and then a subculture within that culture, and being able to, show our audiences the sort of universality and the interconnectedness of these struggles that we sort of all have. I think I feel really grateful for this opportunity, and that our audiences have been so great. And yeah, just feeling like the feeling, regardless of how things may be outside, the act of telling stories is still transformative, and feeling that in this, I'm just really grateful for. So, thank you for having us.
Oh my
Yeah, thank
gosh.
you for being so attentive and keeping us on your radar for as long as you have. And it's been so lovely to learn so much about sumo through this process and even through your podcast. When I first found out about this podcast, I was like, all right, here we go. Somebody else that like is looking at it from the outside to some capacity, and I can dive in with you all.
Oh,
So it's been truly a pleasure.
that's so awesome.
So if people want to follow you or they want to follow the show in the future, how can they find you?
I'm on Instagram at King O Egypt with underscores in between. I have no Irish heritage. I just like that handle.
I'm on Instagram as well at Firestorm, Firestorm. Also, I stream on Twitch periodically, mainly because a lot of my work outside of theater happens to be in video games and voiceover and performance capture work. So if you're curious, you can find me on Twitch at Earl of Sandwich. And yeah. Or as well as like my theater company is usually the way to go as far as sumo news.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think
Lisa
that's
Sinidring's
Lisa's
Instagram as well.
Lisa Sinai.
Just search her
Yeah,
online. But we'll post all about it as well.
we
Hopefully,
can
we'll
post
hear
it.
about it before anyone else does, and we'll make sure everybody knows.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so
Thank
much.
you.
What a
Thank you
total
so
pleasure.
much, Lori and Leslie.
Good luck
Thank
with
you,
your
Lori. Thank you,
final
Leslie.
weekend. We are wishing you a fabulous, fabulous closing and hopefully a great party afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you.